Hi, my name is Zain and welcome to SHASN. SHASN is a political strategy game for 2 to 5 players where every player is a politician in the middle of an election campaign. When the heat is on, what will you stand for? To set up the game, place the player board on the center of the table. Give each player a player mat and the voter tokens of their choice. Place the conspiracy and headline cards on the board, shuffle them before you do, and also the voter cards on top of the board. Take the resources and lay them somewhere nearby. This will form your public reserve. Now we decide who plays first. The first player is decided by voting. Each player votes for the player of their choice, but they cannot vote for themselves. In case of a tie, vote again. After voting is done and first player has decided, we give out starting resources. The game continues in clockwise order, with player 1 receiving 1 resource of their choice, player 2 receiving 2, and so on and so forth till every player has received the starting resources. So how do you win at SHASN? You win by having the most majority voters in the game. As you can see, the map is divided into 9 zones. Each zone has 2 numbers. The bigger number tells you how many total votes can be cast in that zone, and the smaller number is the number required to form a majority. The second you have a majority, you have scored that many points. For example, the Northwest zone has a total of 11 voters that can be cast over there. The second any single player has 6 or more votes, they form a majority. As soon as all possible majorities in every zone has been formed, the game ends, and the person with the highest majority voters wins the game. So now everyone received the starting resources, we can open up the voter cards. Voter cards come in 3 sizes: 1 voter, 2 voters or 3 voters, and each card has the resources written on it that you require to influence that voter. Pay the resources, which means discard them to the public reserve, and influence that card. Remember, all the voters from a single voter card have to go in the same zone. You cannot split them up. Also, you must place the voters right away and not in the next turn. Once you influence a voter card, discard it and draw a new one in its place right away. Now that we have influenced voters, we place them on the board. Each voter token has 2 sides, a blank side and a side with the party symbol. While placing voters, place them blank side up first. Once you form a majority, flip the tokens that are used to form the majority to party symbol side up. This will tell yourself and everyone around you that this majority is now yours. Any extra voters that do not form the majority stay blank side up. In SHASN, as a politician, you have access to 4 resources: campaign funds, media attention, trust of the people, clout on the streets, and you will need to deploy all 4 of them effectively if you want to win the game. But remember, you can only have a total of 12 resources in the game. Any extra must be discarded immediately before the game continues. You can also trade in SHASN with your opponents. You can give them a resource to get a resource, or give them 2 to get 1. But you have to give something and get something. You can't just freely donate resources to any opponent. So how do you get resources? You get them by answering ideology cards. An ideology card has a question on the top and 2 answers, one on each side, a yes answer and a no answer. Below that, you have resources for each answer, and the ideologue the answer belongs to. In SHASN, we have 4 ideologues: the capitalist, the supremo, the showstopper, and the idealist. As you give answers, you level up each ideologue. This is your political platform and it will keep growing as the game progresses. When you are being asked the question, the person asking will only tell you the question and the 2 answers. They will not tell you the ideology or the resources. Think carefully and give your answer. Once you've picked your answer, you receive the card and the resources for your answer. Tuck this card in your player mat under the right ideologue. You have now leveled up the ideologue. What does that mean? It means that the more cards you have of a particular type, the stronger you get. So as you level up an ideologue, you unlock more powers. For every 2 cards of any ideologue, you receive 1 resource of that type every turn. Which means if you have 4 idealist cards and 2 showstopper cards, you will receive 2 trust and 1 media at the start of your turn every turn. Not only that, at level 3 and level 5, you unlock even more powers. These powers allow you to trade resources, allow you to influence more voters or convert opponents' voters, among other things. You can use the level 3 powers, the level 5 powers, the passive powers, all in the same turn and every turn. All the powers are on the player mat, but also in the rulebook, with some additional details there. For example, some powers have additional cost, which is only covered in the rulebook, so please have a go at it. Now we come to everyone's favorite rule, gerrymandering. You gain gerrymandering rights in the zone by having the most voters in that zone, which means you can now influence all the neighboring zones. What does that mean? It means you can take a voter from the neighboring zone and move it to another adjacent neighboring zone.
You can move voters in or out of that zone or in between two adjacent zones. You can do this once every turn for every zone you have gerrymandering rights in. If two people have the same number of votes in a zone, none of them have gerrymandering rights. The bigger a zone is, the more adjacent zones it can gerrymander, but it can also be gerrymandered by more zones. So tread lightly.
You can do this once a turn for every zone you have gerrymandering rights in. Pro tip, when you can gerrymander, gerrymander. Do whatever it takes to disallow your opponents from forming majorities, because majority voters cannot be gerrymandered. The map has a total of 11 volatile areas. These are marked with the black circle. These are areas that you do not want to go in. I'll explain why. Once a voter is placed in a volatile area, a headline is drawn. This headline is good news or bad news for the person whose voter entered the volatile area, but most likely bad news. If your voter is placed in a volatile area, at the end of that turn, that headline card is resolved. But this voter can now not be discarded, not be gerrymandered, not be moved in any way possible. No exceptions. You also have conspiracy cards in the game. These cost 4 or 5 resources and you can buy them whenever you want by paying any resource. Once you have them, you can use them right away or in any future turn. You can also use them between two players' turns. The price of a conspiracy card is usually written on the card itself, and these are usually powers that help you or slow down your opponents, and they are always good for you, so invest in them. Now that covers all the rules for SHASN. You can now begin play, but before you do, a quick recap. You start your turn by the person before you asking you an ideology question. Pick your answer wisely, take the card, the resources, and any passive resources. If you have more than 12 resources, discard down to 12. Now you can take any of these actions in any order, how many times you can afford, which means buying multiple voter cards if you can, using all your ideologue powers, buying conspiracy cards, using conspiracy cards, gerrymandering voters, forming majorities, gerrymandering people into volatile areas. And if you do, at the end of your turn, the headline card is resolved. After which you end your turn by asking the person after you a question. This is the end of your turn, you cannot take any more actions and no take-backsies. The second every majority is formed, middle of a turn, doesn't matter, the game ends. And now we get into end game scoring. As you can see here, player green has a majority in the north zone with 11 points and a majority in the northwest zone with 6 points, bringing their total to 17 points. The brown player has 2 majorities. The west zone worth 9 points and the central zone worth 5 points. This makes their total 14 points. The purple player has 3 majorities. The east zone for 9 points, northeast for 6 and 11 in the south zone. This brings their total to a massive 26 points. Player pink has 2 majorities, southwest and southeast, worth 6 points each. Their total is now 12 points. Note that only votes required to form your majority get counted in your endgame scoring. Any extra votes in your zone or in anyone else's zone do not count in your score. And as we can see here, the purple player has won the game with a massive lead at 26 points. So now we are going to learn the 2-player mode. Everything else in SHASN remains the same except a few additional rules and we'll cover those. Starting with starting resources and the first player. Each player gets 2 resources of each type, a total of 8 resources to start the game with. But to select first player, they are going to bid if they want to be first player. Now the players will hide resources and bid what they think is the right amount to earn the first player position. All bid resources are revealed simultaneously, and all the bid resources, regardless of winning or losing, are discarded. The player with the higher resources is now player 1. Keep the remaining resources on your player mat. Now go through the headline conspiracy deck, and depending on the campaign you are using, there will be some cards with a no 2-player marker at the bottom. Remove these cards from play, they are not compatible with the 2-player game. Now we come to zone requirement cards. There are 14 of these, distribute 7 randomly to each player. Starting with player 2, each player takes a card of their choice and places it on a zone of their choice. You keep doing this in turn till each zone has 1 zone requirement card. Zone requirement cards are of 3 types. The one-time requirement card is a requirement you need to finish once in the course of the whole game. Once you have, to remember that you have, place a voter token right below the card. The while forming majority cards are zone requirement cards that need you to have a particular condition fulfilled while you're forming a majority. If your majority breaks and you're forming a majority again, you need to make sure that you're meeting the requirement again, unlike the one-time requirements. A zonal rule is the third kind of zone requirement card. This places a new rule or condition on that zone on how votes can be placed in that zone. The zone requirements stop you from forming a majority or placing certain kinds of votes, but you can still place voters there. You just can't form a majority no matter how many voters you have, which means that if you have more voters than anyone else, you can still gerrymander. Nothing comes in the way of your gerrymandering rights. Also, when you're reading the ideology card, don't read the top card because your opponent's most likely seen it. Pull out a random card from the center and read that instead. And now you can finally start playing your two-player game. Remember, there are no deals to be cracked, just out-and-out warfare. If you haven't already bought SHASN, you can buy it at shasnthegame.com. If you have bought SHASN, I would love it if you could review the game on Amazon, on Instagram, on Board Game Geek, or any platform of your choice. If you have any questions or looking for players to play, join the WhatsApp community. We have thousands of players from all over the country. If you have any further questions, DM us on Instagram or Twitter. Thanks for watching and happy politicking.